Is it?
3, 2, 1, go.
And good afternoon.
Hello.
And I'm Lou Kemp, and I'm with Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian D. Anderson, teller of tales, spinner of yarns, teller, and purveyor of lies.
Okay. I think I'm living out what I would like to read. I'll put it that way. And I have enough genres to drive anybody crazy. I make mainly magical realism, a little bit of fantasy, very little romance, a lot of mystery, mostly adventure, a little bit of everything. And about 10, 15 years ago, when I tried to sell something similar, I got back. I had an agent at the time who said all the responses said basically, they liked the book, but it's too many genres. And now it's okay.
Yeah. Times have changed, that's for sure. I mean, I write mostly fantasy. I've been doing a lot, sort of going into subgenres myself. Did a mystery / fantasy, murder mystery / fantasy. Writing a humorous fantasy. I'm also writing, starting to go more into science fiction now. And it's just, I mean.
Is your science fiction up above, or is it around here?
Oh, no. Well, the one I'm writing right now with, I was telling you about Sebastian DeCastell, Troy Denning, and Dayton Ward. It's more like a space opera. It's based on an Earth colony. And we spent a year having meetings every week for about a year, an hour-long meeting, building this world. We have probably a 75 to 100-page world Bible, and yeah, it's
a big base.
Yeah, so it's something that's going to be special. Troy Denning, it's 4 books in the first phase. And Troy's doing the lead off, I think, then Sebastian, then me, and then Dayton, then me. I'm going to do the conclusion. But it's been a lot of fun. But it's sort of, I wouldn't say Star Warsy, but it's 2 alien races, one the conqueror. Pretty traditional, in that respect, but completely unique in most respects.
Would you say it's going to happen right away compared to other things? Or
this is no hurry. Troy's has Halo books to write, and he's got a lot of other things. So he's just right now finishing up the sample chapters to send to publishers. This is going to be a very many years long endeavor.
That's what it sounded like, so I was wondering what you meant. Okay.
And so, I mean, I'm not the most patient man in the world, so it's been rough on me. But you got to be. So, but has
this your first collaboration with other authors?
I wrote some of the Akiri books. Did like a Sword and Sorcery with Stephen Saville, and he wrote Warhammer, Pathfinder. He actually did some Sherlock Holmes books and stuff like that. He's very
with other authors.
Yeah, but ours was a little different collaboration than this is. Ours was mostly he took my character and took it further and did his own thing with it, and then I went back and went through his. He went through mine. I wrote the original one by myself, and it was neat. But that's the only other time I collaborated. I mean, I've had to take a lot of input because I write for Conan the Barbarian, and so I have to take Robert E. Howard's character and stay true to the vision. But I don't write like Howard, so that's and they don't ask me to. I mean, Howard had his own unique poetic style, and he had his own thing going. So they don't expect me to match that. They didn't hire me for that. They hired me to write Conan the way I write. So
have you read the poetry that's in The Lord of the Rings?
Oh, Tolkien, jeez,
Did
that's
you
a
read his
that's a
poetry though?
generational literary mind right there. People
Yeah.
don't appreciate him as much as they should. Just because, I mean, you look at it today, and by today's standard, the character building is somewhat lacking. The character development is the most developed character is Samwise probably. So, but you gotta appreciate Tolkien for what it is, not what it's not.
Time wise, I think we got to go into ourselves. Do you want to go first?
Go for it.
You want me to go
You
first?
go for it. Yeah,
Okay.
you go.
Again, I have a combination of genres. My main series with Four Horsemen is the Selwyn series, Immortal Magician, Playful, Unpredictable. And I just turned book 7 in, and it'll probably be out hopefully by the end of the year. We'll see. And it's more of a combination of, it's a character driven adventure. And in book 2, they meet up with Captain Nemo, and a lot of it's on the Nautilus. Okay. And I added in time travel in book 6. Book 7 is full of it, several ways. And I would say that the characters are growing, and they're growing in different directions.
Neat.
And I like it. But I'm going to answer my questions so we don't run it completely out of time.
All right.
Okay. The first one is, if I had to write an entire story without either action or dialogue, which would I choose? Okay. At first I thought dialogue, then I got to thinking about it. It's got to be action, because dialogue gets really tedious when there's too much of it, even when you have choices, in my opinion. And you can, in action, show anguish. In action, you can show anger. Whatever it is you're showing, you can show it all the way through. And I just think that would be a better visual, depending on the reader. And so that's basically my answer for that one. Did you want to do your answer, and then I'll go to the next one?
I think I'd probably go with, if I would write pure dialogue for the sheer challenge of it. How do you show don't tell only using dialogue?
I'll give you a sample of what I would do. I would say, wow, that was a real bad face you made. You must be angry. That's kind of the thing I would do if I had to do all dialogue.
And it also depends on what do you mean by action. Can I show facial expressions, or am I writing it as a script?
Character enters, character falls down and dies.
Because you can do a lot with dialogue tags if you want to, but the way I write, I don't think it would be. I think my biggest challenge would be because of the way I write. I write action into my dialogue because the conversations aren't static. So I have somebody, he leaned forward, elbows pressed to his knees, and when he speaks, that alone tells you that he's engaged.
There's a lot of showing in what you did, which is a great.
Showing the engagement without saying he was engaged, or he looked intense. I show his body language, and that shows the engagement. So it would really depend on what the specific rules. I think the dialogue one would be more fun, more of a challenge. And it depends on how long. I wouldn't want to write a novel like that, but a short story, yeah.
I think that the question's designed to make us feel glad we can do both.
Yeah, right.
The question's designed as. Okay, question number 2. What is the weirdest thing you have ever used as a bookmark? Well, my cat's comb that I brush my cat with, I use it as a bookmark. That's my answer, and that's it. What have you used?
Joint.
Pardon?
A joint.
A joint. You don't think that would have, if they closed the book, that would have, well, okay. A little bit of a flat.
It was a paperback.
Oh, okay. So it didn't hurt anything.
Didn't hurt the joint. And I had more papers. So.
All right. So here we're going to get into the fun one. What 3 people would we invite to dinner, living or dead? And basically we can describe it and say why, I think. My first one would be my author that I would invite, which would be Jodi Taylor. I consider her the time travel queen at this point with her St. Mary's series and her Time Police series. And I didn't like the Time Police when she had referenced them and used them through her first 12 books or whatever it was. But when she did it from the point of view of the Time Police, I'm all for it. And so I could talk quite a while on it, but I just think she's a great author on top of it. But her character, her main character especially, comes through with attitude, and she's fearless. And I just love what happens, any way you look at it. And number 2 is going to be Andy Warhol.
Oh my God.
Not because he's artistic, but because of what he did, thought, his business plan, so to speak, and how he put his focus. I just loved Warhol in all respects. And then last but not least, third guest is going to be Dickie Betts. Dickie Betts, who died from the Allman Brothers here less than 6 months ago. My all-time favorite, any way you can look at it, guitarist, and it's just so sad. But since he's dead, he can come to dinner. And that's it for me. So it's your turn.
Probably start with Homer.
I'm sorry.
Homer.
Okay, you're doing the question 3. Oh, this is question. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Question 3.
Okay.
Homer would be if the thing is speculated that Homer wasn't a singular person, but we're going to go with the idea that Homer was not because of the insights into that time period that only somebody like Homer could not just have seen but communicate fluently. And this is also assuming that I have a translator and can speak the man's language.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that Aristotle was, if you're comparing them, what do you think?
Comparing to Homer?
For different reasons.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. Aristotelian thought has become a foundation of Western culture and Western philosophy. And Homer
is escapism.
Yeah, it's sort of the left brain side of that, if you know what I mean. But they're like two sides of the same coin, if you in a way. If you look at the approach to Homer's the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the approach to that storytelling, and then you read the writings of Aristotle and that whole Plato and that whole group of philosophers, you can tell that they have similar mindsets. You got I mean, a lot of people don't understand that the eras that they're talking about. People picture classical Greece when these people lived, but they're actually speaking of the Bronze Age Greece, the pre-Bronze Age collapse, which was about, I think, started in about 1200, 1400 BCE, and went on. And there are only a few nations like Egypt and a couple others survived the Bronze Age collapse when the sea people did their thing.
Is that when the island by Crete blew up from the
volcano? No, that was the island of Manoa. That was not part of that, but that was the Minoans were the predecessors to the Greeks, and they're the Hellenic culture sort of spawned out of
that happened before that, is what you're saying. Okay.
The Minoans were Bronze Age, but they were just an older kind of proto-Greeks in a way, and their island exploded, and but we still know quite a bit. We actually know quite a bit about them. But that Homer would be one. I'd probably want to, as far as what's his name? Seneca, the Roman philosopher Seneca.
And that's quite a bit later.
Yeah, he famously said, luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Huh. Think about that. That's interesting.
I think he would be an interesting mind to sort of listen to, and probably Albert Einstein. Just because to see somebody that brilliant who was sometimes, if you listen to Einstein, he was also very limited in a lot of ways, and the way he could expand his thoughts, and this had a lot to do with his a sense of arrogance that he had about him. I mean, obviously justified, but I think seeing those three men in a room together talking I don't think I'd have anything to say. I think I'd just sit there and I mean, assuming that the language barrier could be overcome.
Would you be sober while you were watching them?
Oh, hell no.
Okay, I
I
just
would be high. I don't really smoke weed anymore, but I do take these little gummies from time to time when I get a little too stressed out or I need to sleep. I definitely take just a little bit of a gummy just so I can just absorb it.
when you think about what you were describing, like a scene like that, don't you think if you were to try some time travel in with some of those characters, not necessarily those three, but something like that, don't you think that'd be a real good opportunity?
I mean, if I ever was able to travel back to those places, I don't think I'd want to interact. I don't think I'd want to talk to anybody because that would defeat the point of the trip that I'd want to make.
Which is
To
just
see,
to observe.
yeah. I mean, think about it this way: Vesuvius, when Mount Vesuvius went off and covered up Helena and Herculaneum and the famous one that everybody knows about.
You're not talking about it. Okay. You're not talking about the volcano that's in Italy that blew up.
Yeah, and buried I always remember Hercules, and I can never remember Pompeii.
Okay.
And what we know about Roman society mostly comes from there. We know about the leaders. We always knew about them, but we didn't know much about the day-to-day lives of Romans until we found those two cities. And so that was where the real meat of everything comes around, and you start seeing what life was really like. And I think that would be the interesting part. Why would I want to talk to anybody when I can watch and see how they lived, and see if I could relate that and trace that back to where we are now?
A lot of possibilities.
Oh yeah, right. And just imagine the stories you could tell. You know, how would it influence your writing? Oh my God, you know.
Okay. So speaking of what you just said, what do you read just for you when you want to read?
Oh, when I'm a big fan of Douglas Adams. I like the fantasy I grew up with, Terry Brooks, you know, still a big, some of the stuff that I liked is when I was young, I still like today, but
you don't have like a current favorite is what I'm getting at.
No, I have like people I really like a lot. Lord Grimdark, what's his name? I'm having God, the First Law series. If you know who I'm talking about, I'm just having drawing a complete blank. But his writing style is, even when his story sucks, which does happen from time to time, you can tell when he's just filling up pages. But it doesn't even matter because his writing is so good, you don't mind. You know what I mean?
You look at him for his writing, not for his plotting.
No, well, both. He's usually really, really good, but there are times, like in this one of the books where he was like telling stories about these side characters that nobody gave a damn about, but it didn't matter because the writing was so engaging that and you learn so much, and it also kind of makes you feel a little cushion at the same time, thinking, gives you sort of a complex. I'll never be that good.
Well, I bet you also are looking at it like he's setting us up for something else. I better read this.
Yeah.
I look at it that way half the time. So.
Oh, but yeah, he's super good. And it's really killing me that I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Can you spell Pompeii for Chelsea, please?
I cannot.
I think it's an I on the end. I think it's.
I could barely. I had trouble with my name.
I think
for spell check.
That's close, but I think mine would come up all right. But anyway, I was going to say. So currently, other than the sci-fi you described, what are you working on?
I say working on mostly as far as literature goes, I'm working on a book called Prophecies Incorporated, which is a book about where prophecies come from. It's this guy, he's kind of a loser and gets a job with this company that basically prophecies for hire. I mean, every quest needs a prophecy. And how do you do that? So if one's not forthcoming, you can call, if you need something like that, you call Prophecies Incorporated. They'll even come down and set up the stage and the whole theatrics of it. They'll do all that for you. And it's about this guy that goes to work for this company that manufactures prophecies for rich and powerful people.
And not giving it away, but what's going to happen that's going to be the catalyst?
It's more like a Douglas. I was inspired by Hitchhiker's Guide in the sense that there's not so much a point to the story as it is following the character and living the life with him.
It's scenes and scenes and scenes.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definite plot points. But it's not. It's a small story. It's not massive in scope. It's not epic. It's not like the Godling Chronicles, which I have with Four Horsemen, which was my first series, which is saving the world type.
It's an epic type of a thing.
Yeah, which there's the stakes are high. The stakes aren't high here, not at least not for the world in general. They're high for the character himself and the supporting characters, but it's absurd in it's absurdity of the highest order.
Sometimes you need it, so I picture it.
And I parody a lot of things that I find ridiculous. So,
Okay. All right. Okay.
And I have plenty of real world examples to use.
There's a lot in the news right now too.
I mean, you can just go to your local pub and find enough material to write.
Or turn on the news and you'll really see it.
All right.
A real quick question. Did you have an opinion about Andy Warhol when he was famous?
I wasn't really all that culturally aware of Warhol at the time. I mean, I was young. I was a teenager when Warhol was around. The height of his fame is in the 60s. I was born in 71. So he came into prominence in the late 60s into the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
Didn't he die before the...
He died in the 80s, I believe. Didn't he?
I think so.
I mean, I was aware of him. I just,
I didn't pay attention to him. I was too busy.
Yeah, I mean, I was aware of who he was, but I just wasn't, of course, I'd seen a Campbell's soup can. I'm like, okay, well, great soup can, man. My thoughts on pop art were never really that deep. I think they're probably still that way. I'm more of a Renaissance, Baroque period sort of. I love the classical nature of things. Matter of fact, one of the stories I wrote called Talos is a post-apocalyptic dystopian science fiction.
I used Talos as a bad guy in one of mine.
No, he's the good guy in this one. But the point is that there are aliens in this, and the thing is, one of the premises that you find out is that the aliens actually thought we were far more advanced because one of their probes saw our art and our literature and our music from back hundreds of years ago. Yeah. And they said most societies create science first and art later. And because science helps you survive and art is more of a leisure thing. So if they don't try to save societies that don't pass through the great filter, because what do they lose? There's no art to be lost. It's just science that everybody else knows. And if they destroy themselves, no big loss to the universe. But
this is part of the plot, that was what you're saying.
But they want to save mankind because we went backwards. We created beautiful art and music just like nobody else has ever seen before we had the light bulb. Which is, and if you think about it, that's kind of weird. That we, the lack of machinery and lack of technology is easily traced back to like the Romans. You wonder why, with all their technology, they didn't have, at least the steam engine. Well, they did as a toy, but you got to understand, as to do work, about 1/3 of Roman population was slave labor.
Yeah.
You don't invent what you don't need, and when you have
declining before they got great. I put it that way.
when you invent as you need, and if you have human labor to do the work, you're not going to invent a machine to do it. And
You're
so
gonna sit back and have some grapes.
I mean, look at the Western world when around the mid 19th century, when slavery started to end, and starting in Europe and going into the Americas. That's when you really started seeing advancements, because you didn't have forced slave labor to do the work. So you see all these incredible advancements in technology. I mean, you taking the social cultural things out of it. I'm not making any kind of commentary there, but it's from a technologically advanced standpoint, the fewer, the less labor you have, the more you need something to do that work, and necessity is the mother of invention. So it really sort of does mesh together if you look at it, and why the Romans didn't have that, why Europe, when they stopped when they stopped having slave labor and started using serfdom, and then that was phased out, and then they started advancing, but while in other parts of the world it wasn't that way, and why they lagged behind.
Did you know that in Mexico they had slaves when we had slaves? I was surprised when I found that out.
Oh yeah, well, we weren't the last. I think the last country to get rid of that was Brazil.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, like a full 20, 30 years after the United States ended it.
I didn't know, but I'm not surprised. But here's one for you about the Roman time of the heyday of the Romans.
Yeah.
Did you know that in Peru and honestly, several of the indigenous areas in South America, especially in Peru, they had, and I'm dead serious, they have depictions in their artwork, caves, whatever, paper, whatever, of visitors in planes.
I've seen that.
I put it in one of my books. That's how come I'm well aware of it.
I've seen stuff like that, and then there's the helicopter in the pyramids, and I don't know what to think of all that. I'd have to see. You see these individual things, but they're sort of like sort of strands here and strands there that have no connection.
It survived. That little bit survived.
There's a lot of ways you can look at something, and I'm not discounting it, and I'm not saying what it is or isn't. I'm saying I have no idea what that means. And and anybody that says that they know what that is, they're either delusional or lying, because
on the History
no
Channel.
way. I mean, we have things that we solidly know that we still know very little about.
I'm talking about the timeline of it. Here you got this going on, you got that going on at the same time. It's like,
well, they're discovering a lot of things about the Native Americans that they weren't that native compared to their predecessors, which were more like the native Japanese. There was a people that came here prior to that.
Most of them the remnants of that were found in Chile.
Yeah, like they back almost like 100,000 years, because they found some bones. There was a big controversy over it, where the tribe wanted to keep the bones on the tribal land, but the anthropologists were saying, well, they're not you guys. These are more like, and these aren't your ancestors. These are different. They can tell by bone structure and things like that. They said that the most similar were to the native Japanese. And people look at the people in Japan now, and they think, no, those aren't the native Japanese. There's tribes in the southern part of Japan who've been there a lot longer.
Right.
And they were probably the first peoples that came over. Whatever happened to them, we don't know.
It's
And
not
then
too
the
hard to
later
imagine
migration.
that island hopping the Aleutians to get here. It's
Yeah.
really it's a lot easier than believing about Columbus.
Oh yeah. Well, Columbus, I mean, Columbus gets a bad rap. He was a product of his time, and one of the people, his journey to the Western world was the first time that the East and West had met in thousands of years, and so that is significant. Whether or not you can be a great person without being a good person. You know what I mean?
Or you can be paid for, and as he was, okay.
He was a terrible guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But what he did was
He's famous. I'll give him that.
was amazing. So I mean, I'm sorry, it was. And I know there's people who don't like it. You got to look at this. Looking at things through a 21st century lens at 15th century people is a mistake.
Yeah, no, it's not the same. I'm not disagreeing with you there, but all I can say is there's so much that we don't know, that we can't verify, that we can't understand because we have nothing to compare it to. But when you're backing up and you're talking about the sequence of the music came after, and the art and the music came after before the inventions, that it just turns it all around.
Yeah, what I've noticed a lot of this is this revisionist sort of history, to where and this and people actually believe that if they lived in this certain time, that they would behave as they do today, and they wouldn't.
They have other things to do.
You would be a product of your times and the morality of your times, and you would be. You can't. Morality is an evolution, and it's not always a good evolution. Sometimes it goes in a bad way, but it is an evolution, and you are trapped by it. And even it doesn't matter how far back you go. There's people who are great people for their times that would be considered morally reprehensible today, even though at the time they were saints. They were, but you can't.
There's even a 40-year difference on the saints to the sinners recently. Okay.
Yeah, but you can't look at it from your lens. You gotta. It's just like what I said about Tolkien. You got to appreciate it for what it is, not what it's not.
All I had out of that I wanted to actually point out is that I had never known until I knew that he wrote poetry in his books.
Oh yeah.
And I had never read his books, but I heard about his poetry in his books.
The stories of Tom Bombadil are really fun too.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, Tom Bombadil is like the biggest mystery in Lord of the Rings. And basically, I think it's not so much a mystery. I think he just wrote him in because he just loved that character.
In all seriousness, the characters are what drives. Okay, I don't know what the audience thinks of this question, but I'm a pantster through and through, and I assume you are.
I used to be.
And now you're half and half?
Well, I mean, depends on what I'm writing, because sometimes if a story is too big,
if you're epics, oh God, yes, you can't be a pantster. I get that.
Oh no, you still can, but you got to take. But what you're doing, you're trading off. You're trading off taking detailed notes as you go for planning way ahead.
So change this, okay?
Yeah. So you're spending the time one way or the other. You're not saving time by pantsing and not plotting, and you're spending the same amount of time either way.
The plotting to me takes away the imagination and the unknown aspect, and so I can't take that. But the reason that I brought that up is, in general, I sort of a halfway bring it up, is about slavery and so forth. I had no idea I was going to be writing about slavery, but in book 5, it became a big deal about book 5, and my main characters, including Nemo, ran into it and had to do something about it. And so putting two things obviously together that never were together.
Well, I mean, if something that a writer wants to talk about, I mean, we have 10,000, 12,000 years of human history to draw on to the different forms it has taken.
It just happened to happen, is what I'm getting.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that, I was told at one point to remove it from a book because it would be offensive, and I'm like,
but you didn't handle it offensively. and they can't
Well,
ignore
it
it.
was just a fact. It was a fact of that particular world. It wasn't meant to be offensive. It just was, it was just a fact that this group of people were subjugated and enslaved, and it was a fantasy world, so it wasn't contemporary or any kind of racially motivated
Actually
thing.
part of evolution of
Yeah.
civilizations in some cases too.
It has been. If you look at our history and how starting at in the Enlightenment, how that began to gradually change, and if you think about how quick that change was, it's amazing. We went in 200 years, changed changed something that had been around for thousands. And the change didn't come easy, but it came. And you can really thank the wisdom of the Enlightenment to in the late 1700s, how that gradual change came about, and it didn't happen all everywhere either. I mean, it did in the Middle East and the Far East. It was still
Separated
going.
by oceans.
It was, in the Central South America and Africa, everywhere else, it was still.
Different.
It didn't even bear defending. It was so ingrained in the culture. It wasn't even. They didn't have to defend it. It was just.
They didn't think that it was needed to be defended.
It didn't need to be defended. So the West was the first great culture in all history to use their wealth and power to stamp out that institution, and I'm very proud of that.
It took a civil war to do it. Okay. You brought up an opportunity for an opinion. Okay, so everything you just said about what's gone on. Okay, it's now 2099.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
I'm dead.
Okay, but still what's going on? My cat is dead too, but okay, go ahead.
Oh, no. Oh, I thought you said 2199. I'm like, I'm definitely
2099. 75 years-ish from now, what's going on?
Well, George Jetson's getting old. George Jetson's 3 years old, according to canon. And
to who?
George Jetson.
I know, but according to who?
According to canon. There was a scene where it showed his birth certificate. We
know okay.
George, 75 years from now, I don't know. I mean, I think right now I think we're in a major decline. And a sociologist said it like this, and I tend to agree. Societies are built by bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people create strong societies. Strong societies create easy life. Easy life creates weak people, which they can't hold the society together. So the weak people, things fall apart, which creates bad times, which creates strong people, and there's this cycle. And I think we're in this weak people cycle right now.
Okay. When I'm thinking about it, in my personal point of view, I think between now and the 75 years that's gone by, I'm not going to talk about AI because I'll probably start to scream. So we'll ignore that. Okay. But technology in general has changed it so much. George Jetson's little jetpack is now in an antiques museum. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But just generally, I think technology between now and then is just going to blossom, change everything like it should. It probably will. But that's what I'm looking at when I think of what it's going to be like in 2099.
I think you're probably right.
Just generally
speaking, AI. If we ever get self-improving general AI, it'll quickly become super intelligent art. And I think that'll be our final invention, because and we're going to have to rethink everything at that point. We're going to have to rethink economics, ways of life.
Long before that.
And we'll have to rethink that, combined with quantum computing, and we can figure out the carbon cycle, and through carbon, all these things. Once we have all that, it's gonna be rough, because one of the things that we, over tens of thousands, even back to when we were banging on the rocks, is our work defined us and what we did defined us. And when that's no longer a method of definition,
And we
because
have no
everything,
self.
when work is completely unnecessary, and I think we'll become very stupid. I think that our brains will begin to. One of the reasons our brains are smaller than they were, say, several hundred years ago, because you think about what you had to know back in the day. You had to be an expert carpenter. You had to be an expert hunter, gatherer. You had to be an expert at a
Farmer. Yeah.
You had to be an expert at dozens of different tasks and dozens of different skills. You had to not just be good at it, you had to be extremely proficient, and you had to be great at it, or you died. Now, ask yourself this: how many things are you that kind of good at today?
Some, but not enough.
I can't name them. I don't think on one hand I have the kind of proficiency at a thing that my
actually your writing is one of the biggest ones that keeps your brain going. You mean
it does
the dexterity that you're talking about, but your brain's going.
It does, but just think about just your average person, what they without any kind of meaningful existence. And one of the ways we draw meaning is through our labors. And whether it's writing or whatever it is you choose to do, if that no longer becomes a thing and you're left without it,
if your brain gives up on you, you got nothing.
And everything is provided for you, and you want for nothing. You don't have to strive for anything.
I get it. Yeah.
And we basically become pets. And I think our brains will atrophy. I think it'll be a less tragic form of idiocracy. I think it'll be a bunch of really stupid people that are kept like hamsters.
Do you think, to take it another step further, what's left of the Earth that hasn't been destroyed will now be in pods on other planets?
I don't think the Earth is going to be destroyed. I think
technologically we're not going to have a system anymore. What's left of it? It won't be the same, obviously. And there will be agriculture will be managed.
Agriculture. If AI took over and robotics and all that, which that would happen. As a natural evolution of a general and then super intelligent AI, but I don't foresee. We still have a long way to go before any kind of critical mass is hit. A lot further than
75 years.
75 years. 75 years. There's a lot can happen in 75 years. There's ways to make adjustments. I mean, a lot of people worry about fossil fuels. I'm not so much concerned with that because we're already heading in a direction that's replacing that, and pretty rapidly by comparison to most change. And so that'll.
I hope that you're right. And at the same time, I'm worried about climate change right now. It's been one of the favorite chats. Blah blah. She says that we're saying goodbye. So nice to meet you and talk to you.
It was very nice to meet you too. And check out from my releases from Four Horsemen, The Godling Chronicles. It's 6 books in the original series with a 2-book sequel.
I have generally looked, but the one that you mentioned that you used the name Talos, what's the title for that?
Talos.
It is
Talos.
That's who I used. I made him an automat, a bad one. Okay. All right. It's great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
3, 2, 1, go.